Hello, YouTube. This is Asatsu 5. Roe versus Wade is overturned. Hooray. That is good news. That is very good news. But I don't think the conversation is over yet. I don't think the conversation is over yet. I think, we're going to have to maintain this front for a while, or maybe ever. But the biggest argument I feel pro-choicers have is women's health. And, those people who I care about who use this argument, that I respect, those friends, acquaintances, strangers who use this argument. And I think it's the strongest argument, but I don't think it's a very good argument. At least after you unpack it, I don't think it's a good argument. Now, here's a couple things. I'm willing to say that most pro-lifers in this scenario would side with the woman on this, the woman who agrees to do this medical procedure. Let's just say there's a pregnant woman, and she gets bit by a rabid raccoon. She gets bitten by a raccoon that has rabies. And I'm just making this up. This is just for illustrative purposes only. Let's just say the rabies shot will terminate the pregnancy, but it will save the mother's life. But not getting the rabies shot will end in both of them most likely dying, because if you get rabies and it progresses, you pretty much have a 90% chance of dying. It's very rare that someone without the shot survives rabies. So the choice is you both die, or you get the shot and one of you dies. I don't think there was a pro-lifer out there that would point the finger at the woman and call her evil and a murderer and so on and so forth. Now, the mom might have the choice to say, yes, I want the rabies shot in the real world, but in my eyes, that is not an elective abortion. That is, you do this and one of us lives, or we do this, or we don't do this and then we both die. Yeah, to me, that's not elective. And so I also want to tell this story. My mom had a very tough pregnancy with me and my brother. Her heart literally could not sustain her, me, and my brother. And I don't know how many months we were premature. I can't remember what she said, but she did describe the feeling of fading away and dying. They had to give her a lot of blood, and if it wasn't for blood banks and stuff, she would not be with us. But she was determined. I think partially because her father was a war hero. That, she wanted kids. She worked very hard to get pregnant because, she had problems having kids. And but that was something she truly desired, was to be a mother. And she was so determined to be a mother that regardless if she was there to be there when we were growing up, she was going to make sure that she was going to give birth to us and we will come out into society. And a lot of people say to bring out into the world. I don't like that because the fetus is already in the world. We're on Earth. It's not in some kind of weird wormhole where it's outside the world when it's in the mother's womb. So we're already in the world, but she's bringing us out into society, is what I like to say. But she said, I'm either going to die and have kids, or I'm going to, if Lord willing, live and have kids. But either way, I'm going to do what is necessary to have these kids. And I can't point at women and say, oh, my mom did it, so you can do it. That would not be right, but it does illustrate that the mother's job is a very important job. In fact, in ancient Sparta, the only people allowed to have gravestones were war heroes who died in battle and mothers who died during childbirth. That's how valuable your job is. And I know this is going to sound sexist and antiquated and stuff, but that's what that area is for giving birth and making babies. And that's how biology works. That's that's jobs for. So it'll be very tempting for pro-choicers to say, "Well, you're a man. You can't relate to a woman going through a tough pregnancy where she has to choose between her and the child and so on and so forth." I will say that you are very wrong and very ignorant. Let me give a few examples. I'm going to try to make it to three examples. Of course, we talked about the war hero, the soldier who's drafted, and by the prick of blood, the sight of blood, he's prone to passing out. Now, it'd be very difficult to point at him and say, "You're a coward," that you can't fight. But by virtue of his identity, his job is to fight. His job is not only to win the war, but to protect the people to the left and the right of him, so they get to go home. Of course, he wants to go home, and self-preservation is very strong. But your job isn't just for you to go home. Your job is to make sure the people around you go home. So, with the war hero example, my grandfather on my mother's side of the family got shot several times in the stomach, probably by AK-47 because he was fighting communists. And he lived. But it would have been very easy for him to get on the chopper and say, "Bye, I hope y'all can run." No, he decided to make sure his military family, the people he's been fighting with, get home too. Now, here's another example, and I think this one's going to speak a little bit louder than the war heroes situation, because us thinking of war heroes when we're not in the military or have a loved one that's in the military, it's hard for us to really appreciate that. But here's something you can relate to. Let's just say there was a man, and he's either your brother, your boyfriend, or your husband, and this man is walking a mother or sister or girlfriend, or even a complete stranger they just is worried about, to their vehicle or down a streetway in downtown, and a man comes out, points a gun at the man, and says, "Hey, you can leave, the woman comes with me." Now, according to pro-choice, it'd be completely normal and okay for the man to say, "You know what, I really care about my life. Honey, good luck, I'm going." But that's not what we expect of our boyfriends or our husbands and our brothers, as far as women are concerned. And that's not what men expect of themselves when they are a husband, a boyfriend, or a brother. We're expected to fight. And let's face it, the guy has a gun, I might have a gun, I might have a knife, I don't know what I have. I might have a flashlight, a pepper spray. I might be barehanded. But by virtue of my identity as a husband, a brother, a boyfriend, someone that cares about the person I'm walking with, I'm expected to fight. And I'm pretty confident that the woman there is expecting the man that she's with to fight for her. Now, she might help fight, but, definitely if you're on your first date and this happens and the woman's like, and you don't fight, the woman's going to be like, "Good thing I didn't marry you." But then things are far gone anyways. But we're expected as men to protect the women that we're with. And if we refuse to fight, then valuable people die or get hurt or raped or whatever, tortured. So by virtue of our identity as being a husband, a brother, a boyfriend, random guy who just likes the girl and walking to their car after a date, by virtue of our identity, we are expected to fight, because let's face it, if you fight, you may die, but if you refuse to fight, then someone's definitely going to die or definitely going to get hurt or raped. So I think that's a pretty valid point. Now, this one cuts home pretty, cuts to the quick, because we've seen this happen. School shootings. School shootings are an issue. But we've seen at least 2 times, in my opinion, that there was a school active shooter on the school, and the police officers make a perimeter around the school, but they refuse to go in. The whole time, children are getting shot up, their heads blown off, they're just being riddled with bullets and murdered and killed. And the police officers are refusing to do their job that they swore to do and are paid to do, and they refuse to go in there and take out the active shooter. By virtue of their identity as a law enforcement officer, they passed the police academy. They're trained to shoot and fight. They're trained to, render first aid. So, by virtue of your identity as a police officer, as a first responder police officer, your job is to go into the school and seek and destroy that POS. If you refuse to do your job, you're going to live, but a lot of people are going to die. I mean, a lot of people are going to die if you refuse to do your job. So, by virtue of being a police officer, you're expected, your job isn't to write tickets. Your job isn't necessarily to arrest people. The grand scheme of the job of the police officer is to make sure that society is protected from evil. And that's the grand scheme of things. Whether it's discouraging speeding and dangerous driving habits, discouraging drugs, or discouraging shooting people by shooting them. So I think that's a valid point. If you're a police officer and you're not willing to do your job, i.e. go into a school that's being shot up, then you need to find another occupation, because you're not a real police officer, you're a poser. There's other arguments I can make, but as far as the arguments for women's health and saying, well, you're a man, you can't relate to these types of issues, yes, I can. Yes, men can do that. We have to do things all the time that we don't want to do, and it would be beneficial to our health if we didn't do it. But if we fight, we may die. But if we don't fight, the person we're supposed to be looking after definitely is going to die or get seriously hurt. And that's the point I want to make. Now, this is a random argument that I like to use, and I can tell it's a good argument because every time I use it, I never get an answer back. Sometimes I'll get a LOL, but I've never got anybody to answer this question. A lot of pro-choicers will say that the child is not a person until it breathes its first breath coming out of the womb, or C-section. You know what I'm talking about. First breath in the outside the womb. I often use the argument, theoretically, when a whale gives birth, it has to push the baby to the surface to breathe its first breath. Now, if I was to get a spear gun and kill that baby whale, in my opinion, it is a baby whale. But according to pro-choice, did I kill a baby whale? It didn't take its first breath. It was, giving birth. It was still underwater, and before it breathed, I shot it and I killed it. Did I kill a whale? Did I kill a dolphin? I think that's a valid answer or question. I've never had a single pro-choicer answer that question. None. So, anyways, that's my video. I am pro-life, and yes, there were some really troubling pregnancies. I know of some where a woman got pregnant later in life, and the doctor was like, hey, you might want to have an abortion, or this baby might come out, slow, mentally retarded, so on and so forth. Guess what? That child is brilliant. She is owning it in school, and she is an example to the other students. So that's my video. And like I said, Roe versus Wade's overturned, so it's not like I'm adding a lot to the conversation as far as Roe versus Wade is concerned, but I think this is going to continue to be a topic, and I want to get this philosophy out there on YouTube. So that's it. I'm Asatsu5, and I'm out.